Hello everyone, this is Hamza Noor, and in this video lecture I'm going to talk about the first chapter of A-Levels Maths P1, which is Quadratics. And the first learning outcome is that the candidates should be able to carry out the process of completing a square for a quadratic polynomial ax squared plus bx plus c and use a completed square form. Alright, so let's start with this thing. What is a completing square form? Since you know that a general form of the quadratic equation is y is equal to ax squared plus minus bx plus minus c. This is called the general form of a quadratic equation. Alright. So what we need to do is convert this into a completing square form. So what is the purpose of doing so? Because we need to find the turning point of the graph, which can be either maximum or minimum. Alright, since you know that the quadratic graph is like this, and so far you have studied in your O-levels maths that if you solve the quadratic equations either by factorization method or the quadratic formula, you will obtain the roots, basically the two solutions, which are the x-intercepts, the 2 points where the quadratic graph cuts the x-axis. Another method of solving a quadratic equation is completing square form, but the completing square form is generally used for locating the turning points of the graph, which can be either maximum or minimum. If the coefficient of x square, which is a, if it is greater than 0, then it is a minimum point. Alright, and if the coefficient of x square, which is a, is less than 0, then it is a maximum point. And this will be sketched like this, just making a small sketch. Alright, so basically the completing square form, in order to convert a general form of the quadratic equation into a completing square form, you have basically two methods. The first method is a basic formula. I mean, it's not as much basic, but it may seem a little complicated to you in the start, but as soon as you learn it by heart, it would be very easier for you to convert any form of the general quadratic equation into a completing square form. And the other method, the alternate method, is equating the coefficients method. So in this video I'm going to discuss both of them, and I hope after watching this video you will be easily able to convert any quadratic equation into a completing square form. Alright, first talk about what is exactly a form which is said to be completing square form. Alright, so it is y is equal to a multiplied by x minus h, the whole thing is squared, plus k, and where x minus h is equal to 0. Alright, so x is equal to h, and the remaining constant term is y is equal to k. So h comma k is the turning point of the graph. But the question is how to convert it. So as I've told you earlier, that we have two methods. So the first method is a formula. Okay, we will study that first. Alright, I'll be just erasing this working. You have a general quadratic equation form like this: y is equal to ax squared plus minus bx plus minus c. Okay, in any example you would obviously know the values of a, the values of b, and the value of c. Okay, so what you need to do is, we have made a formula, as I've studied from my teachers as well, that y is equal to a multiplied by x plus b over 2a, the whole thing is squared, plus 4ac minus b squared over 4a. This is basically a formula. You don't need to prove this formula, or you will be asked to do so. So what happens that if you put a general form of the quadratic equation into this formula, you will obtain the completing square form, which I showed you earlier, which was y is equal to a multiplied by x minus h, the whole thing is squared, plus k. So in order to arrive at that particular form, you need to use this formula. Alright, so let's start with an example. If you have been given an example like this, y is equal to x squared plus 9x plus 8. Alright, first thing, you know that the coefficient of x square is 1, which is, and 1 is greater than 0. So this means that the graph will be a minimum, the graph will be having a minimum turning point. Alright, it would be a happy phase. But since you know that the value of a is 1, the value of b is 9, and the value of c is 8, so what we will do is put this in the formula. Y is equal to a multiplied by x plus b over 2a, the whole thing is squared, plus 4ac minus b square over 4a. Alright, y is equal to 1 multiplied by x plus 9 over 2 into 1, the whole thing is squared, plus 4 multiplied by 1 multiplied by 8 minus 9 squared divided by 4 multiplied by 1. Alright, all you need to do is simplify this equation, simplify this whole thing. So this goes like this: y is equal to x plus 9 upon 2, the whole thing is squared, plus 4 into 8 is 32, and 32 minus 81 divided by 4. So let's see how much is that. 32 minus 81 divided by 4. So your answer is minus 49 over 4. Alright, so you will remove this plus sign, and instead you will write minus 49 over 4. So this is basically a completing square form, and which is given like this: y is equal to a multiplied by x minus h, the whole thing is squared, plus k. And since I have told you earlier that x minus h will be kept equal to 0, and the remaining constant term k will be kept equal to y. So anything which is present in the bracket will be kept equal to 0. So this means x plus 9 over 2 will be kept equal to 0, and x is equal to minus 9 over 2. Alright, and y will be equal to minus 49 over 4, and if you put it in calculator, you will get that minus 49 over 4 is equal to minus 12.25. Alright, so the turning point of the graph is minus 9 over 2 comma minus 12.25, which is minus 4.5 comma minus 12.25. Alright, so let's take a look at the graph, how it is drawn. So here you can see that if we draw the graph of x squared plus 9x plus 8, so the roots of the quadratic equation, if you solve this equation, x squared plus 9x plus 8 is equal to 0, so the x-intercepts will be minus 8 and minus 1, which you can obtain from using the factorization method, or you can use the quadratic formula. But in order to obtain the minimum point, the turning point of the graph, you will need to convert it into a completing square form, which we have just did. So we got the answer minus 4.5 comma minus 12.25. So here you can also see that the turning point is minus 4.5 comma minus 12.25. Alright, so this was basically a formula method. All you need to do is memorize this formula. This formula will not be given in your A-levels maths formula sheet. Only the quadratic formula of solving the equations will be given, but you need, if you learn this formula, so you would be it would be very much easy for you to find out the turning point of any quadratic equation. Alright, so you can try some examples on your own. Alright, so let's talk about the second method, which is the equating the coefficients, and that is also easy. You can choose either of the methods and try to do maximum practice out of it. Okay, so the second method is comparing the coefficients. Method number 2, comparing the coefficients. Alright, so basically what happens is that the completing square form is y is equal to a multiplied by x minus h, the whole thing squared, plus k. Alright, so for example, now basically what happens is that, obviously the answer of the general form of the quadratic equation and answer of the completing square form, if you solve this completing square form, so answer will be the same, the roots which you will obtain will be the same. So basically what happens is that if you expand the completing square form, you will obviously obtain the generalized quadratic form. So all you need to do is just expand this. This will go like this: y is equal to a multiplied by x minus h, the whole thing square, will be expanded by the formula a minus b, the whole thing square, which is a squared minus 2ab plus b squared. So a square minus 2ab plus b square, and in the end you will write also k. But always remember that a is not multiplied by k. K is just a constant. K is just a constant term which is added in the end. So it goes like this: a square minus 2ab plus b square, where a is equal to x and b is equal to h. Alright, so what happens next if you just expand it? It goes like this: y is equal to ax squared minus 2ahx, okay, plus ah squared plus k. So if you just expand a completing square form, so you will get a generalized form of the quadratic equation in terms of a, h and k, which is y is equal to ax squared minus 2ahx plus ah squared plus k. You don't need to memorize this completely, because you can just obtain the full form of the completing square form within 2 steps. Alright, so there's no need to memorize this. All you need to remember is the completing square form is y is equal to a multiplied by x minus h, the whole thing is squared, plus k. Alright, so let's take a look at the same example which we did earlier, which was y is equal to x squared plus 9x plus 8. So we will obtain the turning point of the graph through this method, alright, which is comparing the coefficients. So as we have found that if you expand the completing square form, you will get y is equal to ax squared minus 2ahx, alright, plus ah square plus k. Now all you need to do is compare the coefficients. What is the coefficient of x square in the general form of the equation? That is simply equal to 1. So a will also be equal to 1, because here in this case the coefficient of x square is a, so a is simply equal to 1. And what is the coefficient of x in the general form of the quadratic equation? It is 9. And in this case you have minus 2ah, so you will simply write that minus 2ah is equal to 9. And since you have found the value of a, so the equation goes like this: minus 2h is equal to 9 and h is equal to minus 9 over 2. H is basically the x coordinate of the turning point of the graph, which is minus 9 over 2. And now since you have found the value of a, you have found the value of h, so you will be able to find the value of k. Basically ah squared plus k does not contain any x term or any x squared sum, so this completely ah squared plus k will be considered as a constant term. Alright, so what's the constant term in the question? It is equal to 8. Alright, so 8 will be equal to, let me just make some space for writing. Perfect. Ah squared plus k will be kept equal to 8, and since the value of a is 1, h is minus 9 over 2, the whole thing is squared, plus k is equal to 8. Okay, so minus 9 over 2, the whole thing is squared, is basically 81 over 4. So k will be equal to 8 minus 81 over 4. And how much is that? Let me just check it. 8 minus 81 divided by 4. So basically the answer is the same, minus 49 over 4, and k will be equal to minus 49 over 4, which is minus 12.25. So these are two methods for finding out the turning point of the graph. Whichever method you feel comfortable with, you can use that. Alright, thanks for watching.